Steve Harvey stopped mid-sentence. The entire studio froze. A woman stood at the left podium, tears streaming down her face, staring directly at the man on the right, the man who had shattered her heart 7 years ago. The audience held its breath. The cameras kept rolling. And then she said 2 words that no one in that studio, no one watching at home, and not even Steve Harvey himself saw coming. "I forgive you." The man's knees buckled. Steve dropped the blue cards in his hand. The audience gasped. This wasn't scripted. This wasn't planned. This was real. And what happened next would become one of the most powerful moments in Family Feud history. A moment that proves sometimes the greatest victories have nothing to do with winning a game. If you think you know where this story is going, you don't. Subscribe now, because what happens next will change the way you see forgiveness forever. 12 hours earlier, the Harvey family, Lisa, her sister Monica, and their 2 cousins, sat in the green room, running through potential answers. It was supposed to be a fun day, a distraction. Lisa's divorce had been finalized 3 months ago. Her ex-husband had left her for another woman after 14 years of marriage. The pain was still fresh, the betrayal still raw. But her family insisted. "You need this. You need to smile again." So Lisa agreed. What she didn't know was that the Williams family, the team they'd be facing, had a player named David Martinez. The same David Martinez who had been Lisa's first love. The same David who had proposed to her at 23, then disappeared 2 weeks before the wedding with no explanation, no call, no closure. Just gone. That was 7 years ago. Lisa had buried that pain, built a life, married someone else. But the wound never fully healed. The 2 families entered from opposite sides of the stage. The audience cheered. The lights blazed. Steve Harvey walked out in his signature navy suit, flashing that $1 million smile, working the crowd like only he can. All right, we got 2 beautiful families here today. Harvey family, make some noise!" The crowd erupted. "And the Williams family, let's hear it!" Lisa stepped up to the podium, focused on the game. She didn't look at the other team. Not yet. Steve asked the first question. "We asked 100 people. Name something you'd be surprised to see at a wedding." Lisa buzzed in first. "A funeral wreath." The board lit up. Number 4 answer. The Harvey family took control. 3 questions in, everything was normal. Lisa was laughing, her family was winning, Steve was doing his thing, throwing his head back at ridiculous answers, making faces at the camera. But then came the face-off for question 4. Steve called Lisa and the opposing team captain to the podium. "All right, Lisa, you ready?" She nodded, stepping forward. "And representing the Williams family, David Martinez." Lisa's smile vanished. Her breath caught. David walked to the podium, and for the first time, their eyes met. His face went white. He stopped walking. Steve noticed immediately. He's been doing this too long not to catch the shift in energy. "Y'all know each other?" Steve asked, half joking. The audience laughed. But neither Lisa nor David laughed. Neither spoke. The silence stretched too long. Steve's smile faded. "Wait, y'all really know each other?" Lisa's sister Monica shouted from the family line. "That's the guy, Steve! That's the one who left her!" The audience gasped. Steve's eyes went wide. He looked at David, then back at Lisa. David's head dropped. His hands gripped the podium. Lisa stood frozen, her jaw tight, tears already forming. The producers in the control room were frantic. This wasn't in the script. But Steve Harvey didn't need a script. He's built his career on reading people, on real moments, on truth. And he knew this moment was bigger than any game. Steve put the cards down. He stepped away from the center podium and walked directly to Lisa. The audience was silent. You could hear the air conditioning hum. "Baby," Steve said softly, his voice no longer performing, no longer projecting. "Just human. Just real. Talk to me." "What happened?" Lisa's voice cracked. He left me 2 weeks before our wedding. No explanation. Just gone. I never heard from him again. The audience murmured. Some gasped. Steve turned to David. Is that true? David nodded, unable to speak. His eyes were red. Why? Steve asked, not angry, just genuinely asking. David finally looked up. I was scared. I was 23. I panicked. And I've regretted it every single day since. Steve stood between them, this 66-year-old man who's seen it all, who's made mistakes, who's been broken and rebuilt. He looked at the cameras, then back at the two people in front of him. And then he did something no one expected. He stopped the show. Hold on, Steve said to the crew. Cut to commercial. We're taking a moment. The producers protested through his earpiece. Steve pulled it out and set it on the podium. I said we're taking a moment. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. The audience sat in stunned silence as Steve turned to Lisa. Baby, I don't know what God is doing right now, but He put you two in this room for a reason. 7 years of pain. 7 years of questions. And now here you are, 10 feet apart, on national television. This isn't coincidence. Lisa wiped her eyes. I don't know what to say to him, Steve. Steve nodded. You don't have to say anything. But if you want to, if there's something in your heart that's been waiting 7 years to come out, now's the time. Because healing doesn't wait for perfect moments. It happens in moments like this. David stepped forward, his voice shaking. Lisa, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. What I did was the worst thing I've ever done. I was a coward. I destroyed you, and I've carried that guilt every single day. I got married. I have kids. But I never stopped thinking about what I did to you. I'm so sorry. His voice broke completely. He covered his face with his hands. The audience was crying. Even the crew behind the cameras had tears streaming down their faces. But then something happened that no one, not the audience, not the crew, not Steve Harvey, and certainly not David, ever saw coming. Lisa walked away from her podium. She walked across the stage, past Steve, directly to David. She stood in front of him. He looked up, his face a mess of tears and shame. And Lisa said, calm and clear, the two words that would break the internet, trend worldwide, and be talked about for years. I forgive you. The studio exploded. The audience leapt to their feet. Steve put both hands on his head, his mouth open in shock. David collapsed forward, and Lisa caught him. They stood there, two people who had been strangers for 7 years, holding each other while decades of pain evaporated in seconds. Steve walked over, put his arms around both of them, and the three of them stood there in the middle of the Family Feud stage while the entire studio wept. When they finally pulled apart, Steve looked at Lisa with a respect that went beyond television, beyond entertainment. How? He asked. How do you forgive something like that? Lisa smiled, a real smile, the first genuine smile she'd had in months. Because holding on to it was killing me. Not him. Me. And I'm tired of being hurt by something that happened 7 years ago. He doesn't get to keep taking pieces of me. I'm taking them back. And forgiving him is how I do that. Steve turned to the camera, his eyes red, his voice thick with emotion. Y'all see this? This is what strength looks like. Not revenge. Not bitterness. Forgiveness. That's power. That's freedom. He looked at David. You just got a gift you didn't earn and don't deserve. Don't waste it. Spend the rest of your life being worthy of what she just gave you. David nodded, unable to speak, his hand over his heart. Steve reached into his pocket and pulled out his personal business card, something he rarely does. He handed it to Lisa. You call me if you need anything. Anything. You hear me? Lisa took the card, hugged him, and whispered, Thank you. Steve hugged her back, and for a moment, the man who makes millions laugh every week was just a man who understood pain, loss, and the courage it takes to let go. The game resumed, but nobody cared about the score anymore. Both families played, laughed, hugged between rounds. When it was over, the Harvey family won, but David's family rushed the stage anyway, and everyone embraced. The audience gave a standing ovation that lasted 5 full minutes. The producers tried to cut to commercial 3 times, but Steve waved them off. "Let them have this," he said. "This is bigger than the show." After the taping, Steve took Lisa and David aside backstage. He told them a story about his own life, a betrayal he'd experienced, a grudge he'd held for years, and the day he finally let it go. "That was the day I started living again," Steve said. "Not before. That day. You just did in 15 minutes what took me 15 years. I'm proud of you." He shook David's hand. "And you, don't you ever forget what just happened. You carry that moment with you. Let it change you." Lisa kept Steve's business card in her wallet. She never called, but she didn't need to. The act of receiving it, of being seen, was enough. 6 months later, she sent him a letter. She was dating again, laughing again, free again. She thanked him for creating a space where healing was possible, where forgiveness didn't have to wait for a therapist's office or a perfectly curated moment. It happened on a game show stage under blinding lights and rolling cameras because that's where life put her. And Steve Harvey, the comedian, the entertainer, the host, became the witness to her liberation. David sent a letter too. He'd started therapy. He'd become a better husband, a more present father. He'd learned that running from fear doesn't make you safe, it makes you a prisoner. And he was done being a prisoner. "You didn't have to stop the show," he wrote. "But you did. And that changed my life." Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. The episode aired 3 weeks later. Within hours, it was everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Reddit. #IForgiveYou trended for 2 days. News outlets covered it. Therapists referenced it. Churches played the clip in sermons. Because in a world obsessed with revenge, with cancel culture, with holding on to hurt as proof of your pain, Lisa showed something different. She showed that forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the most powerful thing a person can do. It's not about the other person deserving it. It's about you deserving peace. Steve Harvey talks about that day often now. In interviews. On his radio show. In his stand-up. "That moment taught me something," he says. "We think television is about entertainment. And it is. But sometimes, if you're paying attention, it's about truth. And that day, we got to witness the truth. The truth is that people are capable of extraordinary grace. Lisa could have destroyed that man on national TV. She could have made him pay for every tear she cried. But instead, she set them both free. That's not just television. That's ministry." The blue card Steve dropped that day. A crew member kept it. It's framed in the Family Feud production office with a plaque that reads, "The day the game stopped, and life began." Steve signed it. So did Lisa and David. It hangs on the wall as a reminder that the best moments aren't scripted. They're surrendered to. They're trusted. They're real. Lisa's sister Monica said it best in an interview 6 months later. "We went on that show to win money. We left with something worth so much more. We watched my sister become free." And Steve Harvey? He didn't just host a show that day. He held space for a miracle. This is what Steve Harvey understands that most don't. Comedy is about timing. But compassion? Compassion is about presence. And on that day, Steve chose presence. He chose people. He chose the moment. And because of that, 2 people got their lives back. And millions of people watching learned that maybe, just maybe, they could get theirs back too. Years later, when Steve reflects on his decades-long career, he returns to that moment often. Not the comedy specials that sold out arenas. Not the best-selling books. Not even the countless awards. He returns to Lisa and David, standing on that stage, choosing healing over hatred. "That's the moment I understood my purpose," Steve says. "I thought I was here to make people laugh. And I am. But sometimes, I'm here to make space for people to heal. And if I can do that, even once, then everything else I've done matters." The ripple effect of that day continues. Therapists use the clip in sessions about forgiveness. Marriage counselors show it to couples on the brink of divorce. Teachers play it for students learning about conflict resolution. Because what Lisa did wasn't just brave, it was transformative. She showed that forgiveness doesn't require perfection from the person who hurt you. It requires courage from you. And that courage changes everything. David still watches the clip sometimes. He calls it his reset button, a reminder of the day he was given a second chance he didn't deserve. He's become an advocate for men's mental health, speaking openly about the cowardice that drove him to run, and the grace that brought him back. "I don't get to erase what I did," he says, "but I get to honor what she gave me. Every single day, I try to be the man she believed I could become when she said those 2 words." And Lisa? She married again 2 years after that day. A good man who knows her story, who watched that episode with her before he proposed, who understood that her capacity to forgive wasn't weakness, it was the strongest thing about her. At their wedding, Steve Harvey sent a gift, a framed photo of that moment on the Family Feud stage, with a note that read, "You taught me what freedom looks like. Now go live it." If this story moved you, if you've ever struggled to forgive, if you've ever wondered whether letting go means losing, share this video. Leave a comment telling us about a time you chose forgiveness. Subscribe so you never miss a story that reminds you what it means to be human. Because that's what this is really about. Not game shows. Not celebrities. Not entertainment. Humanity. And the stunning, terrifying, beautiful choice to love even when it costs you everything.